welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. Boy, it is always nice to be coming your way, bringing you a new conversation. And this conversation is, well, you might call it part 3. Our guest is a returning guest. Always love to have input from our guests who have been with us before to talk about, well, in this case, her music. And the music that she is featuring these days, we want to talk about it. We're going to talk about a song and an album, One Earth. Our guest is returning to us, Kaliyani. She is a visionary New Age recording artist. Again, the single is One Earth. There is a music video lending her captivating voice as a call for human connection and oneness to heal the earth. Kaliyani, thank you so much for being back with us again today.
My pleasure, Richard. It's always good to be with you.
And so this is your latest work, One Earth. You've got lots of other audio and video up on, I'm sure, YouTube and many other places. For those who are learning about you for the first time, let's do a little catch up, so to speak, and tell us how this music career, if you will, or vocation, started for you, and did it start in this particular, shall we call it, genre or lane of metaphysics, of spirituality, of connectedness, of oneness, of being awakening oneself and one's soul, mind, body, spirit, to the realities that are, and not to the realities that are not.
Yes. Wow. You really know how to. Well, it is a very definitely a yes, and yes, it began that way, and it was inspired by that. You know, I always say my inspiration comes from a connection with a sense of the mystery, right? Something that is not tangible, but you can feel. And what started it is a very beautiful story, and it has to do with an awakening to the divine within. I was meditating a lot. I was doing a lot of inner work. You know, I was in my, I had just finished my program in spiritual psychology, my master's. And I was serving at SRF, Lake Shrine, doing, spending some time there, just meditating in the gardens. And so I one day felt this, you know, desire to do a film, because I had a production company called Stargate Alliance. I still do. It's a conscious media company, and I had worked on a peace project and in a documentary called Secrets of Love, which is using understanding loving relationships as a catalyst for evolution. And during one of my meditations, I received that I was supposed to create this movie about the sacred feminine. And I know that Bill and I had trouble licensing music, how difficult it is to license music. And in another meditation, it said, "You are going to create the music." And I said, "This is a voice in my head. I don't know anything about music. I was not musically trained." It was pretty late in my life. You know, in my 40s. And I was like, this is not, I never dreamt to be a singer. I didn't want to sing. I feel like I am a reluctant singer.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But it's beyond singing. To me, it's a message. It's planting a seed. It's how the universe invited me to speak about what I couldn't talk about because there were no words. So I had a lot of difficulty expressing what I was feeling. It was this beautiful awakening of the heart, and a fire burning, a wanting to say what I couldn't find words to say. And, I remember at the time listening a lot to Lisa Gerard. I say she's like my muse. Lisa Gerard, I don't know if you know her work. She does a lot of music for film. She used to be a lead singer, one of the singers that Dad Can Dance many, many years back. And then she went solo and created many, many soundtracks and albums with different musicians. But she, her music has this haunting spiritual quality. And I thought, well, if I could pick a soundtrack to go with the film I have in mind to make about the sacred feminine, it would be Lisa Gerard's, like Immortal Memory. I think it's Immortal Memory, one of my favorite CDs by her. And then in the meditation, it continued to come to me, and I said, well, let me just flirt with the idea. If I were to create anything, what instruments would I want in it? What kind of feeling tone? And shortly after that, I met my composer, and I had a meeting with him, and I explained to him the best way I could. And I felt like quite nervous because I said, how can I tell him I want to create music if I have no history of singing or playing an instrument? I mean, I know how to play the Native American flute a little bit. I know how to play a little bit of drums, but not classically trained, So, and he said, sure, let's do that. And I said, it's for a film I want to create. So I want to start with the soundtrack. Because in a film, I have friends who work in the industry, and I've seen them editing film and mixing for TV shows and everything. And when they turn off the sound, the whole entire soul of the film is gone. There's no life. A film without sound, noises, and little drones even in the background, or piano or something. If you pay attention consciously watching a film or a documentary, doesn't matter what it is, pay attention. There's always some kind of music in the background. It's the soul, it's the spirit. It moves you. It's what moves you, right? The crescendo, the momentos, and so I said, let's start with that, because without that, this film will never be what I want it to be. And by the end of 3-hour session, I said to him, can we, do you mind that I sit with you while you compose? Because I have an idea of what I want. I said, no problem, And he was very confident. Riz is extremely talented and very confident. And I sat there with him, and I had given him 4 different tracks of songs that, he said, give me a sample of something I like, And I gave him 3 or 4 tracks. I can't even remember now. But he just started playing, and I said, oh, I like this, I like that. Not so much. Can you add strings? Can you go faster? Can you go slower? How about drums? And he was like this interesting, I don't play, but I could hear it in my head. And at the end of 3.5 hours, this is about Namu's Invocation, which you interviewed me for. It was the first release. With that beautiful music video as well. That, the imagery was so powerful. And he said to me, he played it from beginning to end. He said, do you hear what I hear? And I said, yeah. He said, I've always wanted to create something like this. This is extraordinary. What are you going to do with it? And I said, well, I'm going to take it home, and I'm going to vocalize into it. I'll try to sing it. She said, did you ever sing? I said, in the shower. I did some karaoke. And he said, well, if you can't figure it out and you can't do it, I have a lot of singers who would love to sing to this. And I said, okay, well, let me give it a shot, And that was it. One day I'm sitting with it. I used to fall asleep listening, and the richness of the instrumentals on a Namu's Invocation is so extraordinary, so orchestral. I thought to myself, how can I ever sing to this? It's so full. There's no room, and I had 0 training. So, but this fire burning on my chest and the beauty of what I was hearing and everything moved me. And in one sitting, I sang the song from beginning to end to my cell phone, sitting on my den, and playing it on the. I was putting it on repeat, and I was listening and listening and listening, and I just started to vocalize, and these tones just came out of me. I actually have the facsimile recording. I think I still have it on my phone. And of course, I had to do a little bit of adjustment in the middle. There was a note that was a little too low or too high, but basically it came out of my mouth in one shot. And it was astounding to me. And when I prepared, I was completely intimidated by the whole entire experience. And when I had to return to the studio to record, I was like praying the whole time and doing breathing and going like, okay, this is it. I am going to do this for you, mother, because I was singing for the sacred feminine, and I felt that I had this beautiful divine presence with me that was carrying me through and creating the opportunity for me. It's as if the doors just opened. I met the right people. Everybody around me appeared to support this. It's just, I get chills when I talk about it, because it was meant to be in a way,
Mm-hmm.
And I resisted for a while.
Yeah.
But eventually it took over and became bigger than the film. I never went back to the film because the song ended up in a theatrical release of a film as well, and then came Tears for Nana, and and this is different though. I'm singing in English and I'm singing with comprehensible language, but it was worth the cause, because it was very special, very special.
Well, there are times when I question whether or not English is a comprehensible language. What I
can't
find.
Agree more.
What's that?
I can't agree more.
Yeah, because though we speak the same language, there are so many who are unable to understand where another person is coming from. Now, I know that that's dealing with other issues, granted, but still, it actually goes back to the days of Bill Clinton asking the question, yeah. What is? I'm just going, what are you? And then, of course, now today we've got people who they actually are intentionally working to create as much confusion as is possible. And I've been talking about this kind of conversation for quite some time, and we are going to continue doing that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story.
And the recognition that we're all a part of the same set. We're all one, as it were.
Oh my God, look at that picture over there. There's the Earth coming up. Wow.
One world, one heart, one great big family. It's time we realize there's more that we can be. Can you hear the lights? Listen to the stars. They say you're not alone. No matter where you are, so will you hold my hand and sing the song with me? The earth keeps calling us, and this time we can hear. And here we are, surrounding you. We hear blue sky, live a people that do care. We're a single planet race, no creed or gender can divide. Under the rainbow of our skin, we simply share one beating heart. So will you hold my hand and sing the song with me? The earth keeps calling us, and this time we can hear. And here we are, surrounding you. We hear your call, we come to you. Here we are, surrounding you. We hear your call, we come to you. We can see beyond our colors. Your pain hides in my tears. We are heroes without borders, and it's love we need not fear. For we are one around the world. We're not alone. The time is now, for we have come awake. We're the ones we're waiting for, the ones to co-create a whole new world. And here we are, surrounding you. We hear your call, we come to you. Here we are, embracing you. We hear your cry, come to you. Here we are, surrounding you. We hear your call, come to you. So will you hold my hand and sing this song with me? The earth keeps calling us, and this time we can hear.
I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and my very special guest here on the program today is visionary New Age recording artist Kaliyani. And you're going to be hearing music from her. And you'll be seeing, if you're watching the YouTube video, you'll be seeing videos of those songs throughout this program, throughout this conversation. The One Earth song, the release, One Earth, is Brazilian-born New Age recording artist Kaliyani's latest soulful, inspiring single and music video released with more than 4.5 million views thus far. Kaliyani's YouTube channel debuts her timely new music video celebrating the earth, inspiring hope, and embracing the beauty of human connection. I want to ask you, I actually do want to go into that realm that I just kind of brought up briefly of communication and understanding and listening, but I'll go there later. So I want to ask you about this aspect that we hear quite often. I am certainly one of those who is very interested in doing all that I can to make sure that the role that I play on this planet in regarding our environment is one of caretaker, of steward, that I do what I can in my little corner of the planet, and hopefully be an example in that regard, not depending upon anybody else to do the same. It isn't about that. It's not about, well, I'll do it if you do it. It's, I will do it. I am doing it, period. And I've heard the term that we need to help to quote unquote heal the earth. But I've also heard the terminology, the earth does not need our help to heal. She will do just fine on her own, at least from the global earth, big blue marble standpoint. That doesn't mean that I won't continue to do my part, okay? What are your thoughts in that regard? Does the earth really need our help? Or should we just say, we know she doesn't need our help. That doesn't mean we shouldn't clean up our home.
Absolutely. I think what the earth most needs is for us to stop damaging her. And in that sense, yeah, she wouldn't need any more help. But to think that we are not symbiotically connected, like an orchid depends on a tree to grow. We're all interlinked, and I do think we've trashed it so much that, yeah, we do need to clean up. We're not helping the earth, we're helping ourselves, because you don't want to bathe in a river full of shoes and being hit in the head by plastic bags and having animals suffocated and not being able to breathe the air. We're not saving the planet, we're saving ourselves, because without this planet we don't exist, or we're not healthy in it, we're not thriving. So it's beyond helping the planet, it's helping ourselves through cleaning up our mess, right? That's another way to look at it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. We made the mess. Let's clean it up. I mean, what's that phrase especially from here in the States, kindergarten, where you're supposed to have learned that when you are through with your toys, you put them away. Whether that be in a box or on a shelf or in a drawer, you put them away. It's just that simple. It's one of the bugaboos for me with computers, for example. I don't know how tech savvy you are in this regard or knowledgeable, but when you go to open an application or a program, when you click on that icon that is connected to the execution file in terms of executing the opening of that program, it knows where to go to get all of the parts to build the program so that you can then write your novel, record your music, whatever the case may be, even make a phone call for that matter. However, what I don't understand is why, when you close the program, and remember, it's copying the data from its original location to, for example, memory. It doesn't know how to put the stuff back. And so you have to run a program called defragmentation, because you have all these fragments of programs all over the place. And unless you run it every so often, or you shut the computer down and then start it up again, your computer starts to slow down. Your phone starts to slow down. And I'm sitting here going, why didn't the developers of the computer incorporate that program in there?
Every time you shut the computer down, everything closes.
Well, when you close a program, not when you shut the computer down, when you close the program, it closes the program. but there are still fragments of the files that were needed to run it that are still sitting there on your hard drive, the working space, the desktop working space, if you will. Okay.
I see, I'm not as savvy.
And yet there we are. I mean, what you're talking about is we just need to clean up our home. Well, how hard is that really? I mean, I even challenge people who are, very much opposed to this whole, the conversations around climate change, and I say, okay, all right, well, let's take the science out of it. I don't care about the science. Forget about the science. There is no science. I say, don't you think we should clean up our home? And then I go on from there and I say, okay, so every weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe, your family, and I know it was in my case with my family when I was growing up as a kid, we would sometimes be given tasks that was on some board, or we'd pick tasks out of a hat or something. And those were the things, whether it was pulling weeds, mowing the lawn, picking up the laundry, doing the dishes, if there were any, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, if it doesn't matter that we clean up our home, why bother cleaning up your living space if it doesn't matter?
I did a post on Facebook when I was about to do the launch, and it was exactly what I said, word by word. I said, I know the anti-climate change trolls are going to attack me like they did last year when I first announced that I was working on a song, and I put it on my public page on the Kaliyani music page. I was attacked. People were laughing, and I was like, wow. So when I came out this time, I said, you trolls can do your thing. It doesn't affect, because, if you actually believe that the earth is up for political grabs, that's like a very, sad situation. If you believe you don't need to take the trash out and you're going to make your house a horde hell with bags and trash everywhere, smelling that shit, I'm sorry. And that's what you want for your living space, then go ahead, do that inside your house. Now, in the community house, which is this planet, a lot of people want to breathe clean air and have beautiful, clean waters and raise consciousness about protecting the environment by doing whatever we can to stop damaging it. I don't go around hammering my walls or throwing, trash on my table.
Right.
I don't leave plastic bags around my, the aquariums, it's just senseless to have that dialogue. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
I think the other element too is the encouraging
politics.
I'm sorry?
Politics, right? In the end.
It is politics in the end. You're right. One other element of it too is the resistance to changing. For example, now we're not going to get into the weeds on this one, but I'll just use this as an example. The argument over getting off of fossil fuels, and of course talking about solar and wind, and I'm even familiar, of course, with wave energy. They'll put these devices down under the water, and the movement of the ocean will generate, will generate power. Hydroelectric, where you're using moving water going down waterfalls or through dams. Even there's another, I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically using the heat from the earth, the steam coming up, like at Yosemite or Yellowstone, for example, where you'd put a cover over it, that the steam would go into a generator, turn a turbine, and generate electricity. And so on and so on, whatever the innovations are. And, and of course, I keep hearing all of the arguments against doing that, because so many things nowadays are made from quote unquote petroleum products. Well, that may be true today, but I'm also seeing articles, and I watch a lot of these little YouTube shorts that show how manufacturers are trying to create different things that we use every day from some of the land-based, primarily, materials that sometimes you just find right there on the surface of the earth, like the various types of plants. I was just watching one where there's a banana plant, the banana plant where you grow bananas, right? Well, you can only apparently, I didn't know this, apparently you can only grow one crop off of one tree. Then you got to cut it down
Yes.
and start over.
Yeah.
Well, what do you do with the tree?
What do you do?
Yeah. So, what do you do with the tree? Well, guess what? They found a way to process it and use it to make clothing. No, it's not going to smell like bananas, but it's part of the textile industry that was so prevalent back in the 17 and 1800s, and so forth. So it's like we went from walking to riding animals, horses in particular, horse and buggy. Then we went to the automobile. Well, there has to be another evolutionary step somewhere. If we could bilocate, I mean, I read about bilocation in Autobiography of a Yogi. I'm still working on it, trying to figure out how I can go to Ireland free,
By the way, I just read on the blurb you wrote for your channel that it's your dream to live in Ireland. How close are you to it?
Oh my gosh.
I would love to visit. I'm coming soon, actually.
Well, I'm in Santa Barbara right now. It's been, quite honestly, 20 years since I went to Ireland with my wife the first time. And it's been 19 years since I went the second time. I'm still waiting for the third time. Right now, we have challenges here that that we need to deal with, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the opportunity wouldn't arise. I would love that. But I'm patient. I trust the universe. In other words, I've put it out there. Yeah, I've said it a few times on this program, but I've put it out to the universe, and now it's like, okay, whenever you're ready, I'm ready to go. Okay, I will, you make a way for our entire family, which is my wife and I and our animals, to move to Ireland, and we're there. I'll take a 2-week trip there too. And by the way, I won't take any less than 2 weeks because, you just get there after 15 hours of flying, and it takes a day or two to kind of acclimate, and off you go. But anyway, the music that you create, and you are Brazilian by birth, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. But I'm sort of first generation Brazil. My whole family is from Portugal, actually. Both sides of my family, mother and father. My mother is actually Portuguese herself. My father is not Portuguese, but my mother was born in Portugal. And my grandpa moved to Brazil when she was about 13, 12. And then I ended up here at 20. My kitty's been wanting to participate.
Please. We have had animals walk through, so it's absolutely appropriate.
She was biting the cord for the computer. I was afraid the computer was going to fall, so I had to. She's very active right now.
What's her name?
Tazzy.
Tazzy?
Tazzy. Say hi, Tazzy.
Hi, Tazzy. Oh, my. Tazzy looks an awful lot like our Mancoon Merlin.
She has a little Mancoon. Every tabby has a little Mancoon in them.
Yeah. Huh? Oh, she's beautiful. She's beautiful. Animals are so important. That we'll get into that as well here on the program as we continue here. Yeah, that's right. As we continue here on Tell Me Your Story.
Emotion
I'm Richard Dugan, your host, along with our very special guest. She's a Brazilian singer, a songwriter, visionary, metaphysician, if you will, Kaliyani, and spiritually inspired visionary. She's a producer, an artist, and a founder of Stargate Alliance Films and Media, and also releasing her latest song, both video and audio, One Earth. And again, we will be featuring both audio and video of the work that she is doing here on the program. So you stay with us here on the program. Let's talk a little bit about and dovetail off of the whole environmental thing in regards to change. Now, John Denver, in one of his songs, he says, changes somehow frighten me. Still, I have to smile. It turns me on to think of growing old, and so forth. And I sometimes wonder myself what it would have been like to have raised a family, or gone sailing around the world, and so forth and so on. But at the same time, I also recognize, maybe as you do, that you found your life's purpose. Is that accurate for you, that you found it and you do travel about?
Yes, it is true. This is my life's purpose, and there's something profound to live in purpose. And you know that because you also have that sense with what you've created, I bet. But yeah, it's definitely, and I do travel about. I went to Europe in 2021. I went to Garabandal, Spain, to visit the area of the miracles. There were the miracle of Garabandal. I went to Fatima, Portugal, and it was amazing. I've in 2016 I came across footage of those children in the miracle of Fatima and the miracle of Garabandal. Actually, Garabandal, there's actual footage. Fatima was so long ago, it was 1917.
Yeah.
And Garabandal was later, the last apparition was actually on my birthday in 1965. I am that old, trust me.
Now tell me, first of all, where it is. Where is it?
It's Garabandal, Spain. It's like northeast Spain.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to remember the region. Santander, something like, it's called Santander.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very up north in the mountains and east of. So what I did is I left Porto, Portugal on a car, and I went to Santiago de Compostela directly there. Actually, that was a Jubilee year. I'm getting chills now. And they say if you walk into the cathedral on a Jubilee year, all your sins are forgiven. I had no idea. I just happened to be there. And I had not planned. I said, just when we're about to take like a turn to go east, I said, in 2 hours I can be in Compostela. Let me go to Compostela. So I took the car there and walked through the whole place, and then took the car on the coast, a beautiful coastline on northern Spain with the ocean there, and went to Garabandal. And Garabandal is, I was feeling called since 2016 to visit and know that space. There's a lot of predictions that were made about the future by those 3 little girls.
Mm-hmm.
Or is it 4? And some of them are still alive. They're in their 70s. They say there will be an incredible miracle happening there, and a transformation for the planet. And one of them, Conchita, the main one, who got the most visions and apparitions, and they were levitating. They were walking backwards in the dark, up the hill, over rocks, and never fell. And they would walk like a system. They would be holding arms with each other, and they would have people kiss the cross and that were behind them, and their whole bodies would turn in a way that a normal human. And if somebody tried to lift them, nobody could lift them off the ground. Even 2 men could not move them, and they would fall on their knees in ecstasy, you know, their heads would fall back and tears would be coming down their eyes. And when they got up, their knees were completely intact. We're talking like a rocky, because I was there. I walked to the path, I walked to the grove of pines where they say Mother Mary appeared to them. So yeah, I love doing pilgrimages, spiritual pilgrimages, and I want to continue to do them now. I am about to receive that green light from the universe as you've been saying.
Yeah, I was watching a program where this gentleman was talking about primarily coming from an agnostic perspective about specifically Christianity, but it applies to what you're talking about in terms of miracles. And he was talking about this, how there are those who will believe, who will just accept out of hand because it's written in some book, that these certain events happened, these certain miracles took place. But when it comes to some of the other belief systems, I refer to them as philosophies, they say, no, that's absolutely crazy. That's nuts. No, there is no spaceship that's coming for us. No, we're not going to live in a celestial heaven and we have to be sealed and so on and so forth. And these are terms that most people who know of these other philosophies know what it is, and so on and so forth. And yet they will accept a lot of the unusual events that are written in this other book that has an old and a new covenant. And I'm sitting here thinking, see, I worked for a Christian station for 15 years. And I got to the place where I said, who am I to pass judgment on your experience?
Right.
It's your experience that has made you who you are today. And if I try to undermine that experience, then I am undermining you. I am doing damage, so to speak, to your fate, whatever it may be. So talk to us in that regard. From your experience, were you raised within within Catholicism?
Yes and no, because, you know, my mother was born basically almost inside a church in Portugal, and she was confessing almost every single day, and until she moved to Brazil when she was 12. And when she took the communion often, because my grandfather was a nobleman, and, you know, even though Republic had established itself in Portugal, he lived in the solarium home that he inherited from his parents, and they still treated him like royalty. And so the clergy in those days, in the past, when there was a monarchy, the clergy and the monarchy were very close. They worked together, and there was a lot of respect, you know, that existed between those. So the priests would come to my mom's home on Sundays, and they would have a feast with my grandmother. Still cooked on wood stove, you know, and she had people helping her. Of course, she had 9 children. My mother was the 9th, and there was banquets every Sunday, and abad, they call abad, you know, the priest would come, or the priests and the priest's assistants, whatever we call them, and they would dine or have a lunch that would last 5 hours. My mother used to say they would sit at the table and there was red wine, you know, because he made his own red wine. The land was so big, he created his own olive oil, and everybody that shared the land that worked for him had free access to the food, and they could take the wine, they could take the flour, they could take the grains and go to the mill. Everything was very rudimentary. There's no, you know, my mother was born in 1943, so there was no lights. It's a beautiful story. I went there and I visited it for the first time in 2020, November 21. And it was fascinating. I'm so sad that I never got to go earlier and get to know my mom's history and story while she was still alive. My mom passed away a month after I returned.
Mm.
it was terrible. And I was planning to take her there in spring of this year of 2020. We had made plans, and I said, I'll come and I'll bring you again, because I fell in love with Portugal. Anyway, but not to get too long of a story. When she was 23, she was married for 4 years. She read a book about the Holy Inquisition, and she was so devastated by what the Catholic Church did. And she had a deep relationship with Jesus and Mary. And she said, and she taught us prayer from the crib. I think my first memory, conscious memory of self, is when I was in my crib, and she's teaching my sister, my older sister, to do the sign of the cross, the long one, you know, like that, and then like this. And I couldn't even talk, but I was so eager to learn that. And I couldn't understand why she spent this time with my sister that was so special, not with me. And I started crying. I grabbed her hand and I smeared it on my face. She started laughing. So she taught me to do, she had to teach me to do the sign of the cross when I was like 1, because I was complaining, or 1.5, I don't know. But so she taught us all kinds of prayers. I did like 4 or 5 prayers every night before going to bed. And she sat by our bedside, making sure we prayed until we were like, you know, preteens or something. And then she let it, you know, and I never lost it. I prayed all my life, but never really, she never took us to church. She didn't believe in the institution anymore.
Mm.
She believed in the power of prayer. She believed in the power that is, you know,
Yeah.
but and how to access it, how important it is to have a pure heart and mean your prayers. But, and so I grew up in a sense, you know, Catholic and praying. And I think a part of my awakening is deeply connected to the power of prayer, because there's another long story I can tell you, but I don't know if I could go there now, about how this whole awakening to what I do today really began in 2003 at the, you know, the end of my marriage, when I was going through so much, and I felt so alone, and I had forgotten my prayers, because I was taking care of my kids, and my husband at the time was agnostic, you know. He called himself an atheist, but I know he wasn't. He ended up reading books about God and started going to the synagogue, because he was half Jewish, half Christian. His mother was Christian Catholic and his father was Jewish German. And he was traumatized by that. There's many sad stories when he was growing up, of them trying to attack their father. And then, yeah, it was just in Brazil when he escaped Kristallnacht from Germany.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that time I started doing this prayer that I had heard many years ago when I was a kid. I only heard it twice, and it was none of the prayers I knew. It's called Caritas, Prece de Caritas. This is a very long prayer. I had only heard it once or twice, but I thought that is the prayer I want to do. I wanted to come back to who I was. I wanted to reconnect to my sense of spirituality that I had abandoned while I was married, because either I was too busy or I was too afraid to trigger my husband, because I was a very spiritual child. I was a very spiritual teenager. I wasn't a normal teenager. I didn't do things with other teenagers. I mostly read books and investigated the occult and spirituality, and visited alternative forms of spiritual centers like Kardechism. I even visited some Rosicrucian centers. I read a lot of books on spirituality. I don't know if you know the work of Allan Kardec. It's very beautiful. You'll probably love it.
Matter of fact, that's new to me, and that's part of the reason I do these programs, because I learn so much about other philosophies that are out there. You know, I mean, I've studied quite a number of them myself, but they're probably more the mainstream, maybe 6 or 8 or 10 of them, mainstream, at least as far as most people might know of them. But I'm always curious about some of the others that are lesser known, that have
He was
been.
a French doctor.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of beautiful work with, it's almost like Casey, you know, he would put them under hypnosis. And all this incredible amount of information that was revealed to him. It's really extraordinary. And there's a lot of spiritists. It's called spiritists in Brazil. And but anyway, just so I can finish that story, I started doing that prayer. I felt called to do that prayer. It's a 3-page long. I had to call home, and my mother dictated to me, and I wrote on a piece of paper, handwritten, and I had like 3 pages, and I put my bedside table. And every morning before getting my feet on the floor, this is the guidance I got. Do not put your feet on the ground before you say this prayer.
Mhm.
And before you go to sleep, when you lift your feet off and put it on the bed, you do that prayer. And I did that for weeks, but I did it with such depth of feeling. Every word was, and this is how prayer should be done. You have to feel those words. You have to connect to what you're saying. And I started to have visions and dreams, and ONEness started to appear to me, this entity, which is like Mother Mary of the Asians, you know. I don't know if you know, she's the mother of compassion, the goddess of compassion. And I had never heard of her. Of all the things I had studied as a teenager and a young adult, I never came across much Buddhism or anything. It was esoteric, Western mysticism, spirituality, but nothing Buddhist. And I was grateful, because if I had known, I would think it was my imagination creating that stuff. But I had no idea, who's this geisha woman that's showing up in my dreams, and I'm seeing her through the door, the glass door, or, you know, she was all around me. And at the time, I had a nanny, 4 kids. And she was clairvoyant. This nanny said to me, "The Buddha lady is with you." And I said, "The Buddha lady? Who's the Buddha?" You know, it was just an extraordinary journey, you know. It's a very long story, so I'm going to cut it a little short. So that's when everything unfolded, you know, and I felt guided along the way to take USM as a continued education, master's program in spiritual psychology. And then everything unfolded, you know. I woke up one morning with the name Stargate Alliance in my mouth, like a burp. I had no dream, nothing. So things like that kept happening, you know.
Yeah. Interesting. You know, I remember my mother asking me the question, probably when I was in my 30s, early 40s, if I had ever had any spiritual or supernatural experiences. And I said, well, if I have, I wasn't aware they were supernatural. They were just commonplace. You know, they was normal in that respect. I never even thought too much about that. And that's kind of the way I look at Jesus and his miracles and the things that he did and the way that he treated people. It was just the way he was. He didn't ever thought of himself and what he was doing as unusual or strange. And we need to take that same tact that yeah, we can accomplish a lot of things if we just put our intention into it. One of my intentions is to let you, our listeners, know that we are talking right now with a beautiful woman who's got a beautiful voice and some great music that you want to listen to. Kaliyani is her name, and your website. Give us the website where we can find out more information about you.
Kaliyani.com or KaliyaniMusic.com.
How simple is that, folks? KALIYANI.com. And this is Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I find this conversation fascinating because being born and raised in the Western Rite of the Catholic Church, my first marriage at the age of 23 was to a woman whose family was Byzantine Rite of the Catholic Church, still under the Pope. A lot of people think it's Orthodox, and it is not. And one of the things that I found so fascinating my mother did something for me that I will always be grateful for. I was 16. I was a paper boy delivering the morning Sunday paper. I would come home exhausted because I had 100 customers, and I'd get back into bed, and she'd come in at 9 o'clock and say, okay, it's time to get dressed and get ready to go to Mass. And one morning I said, I really don't want to go. And she said, okay. And it was probably in my mid-late 20s when I finally asked her why she did that. And she said, I didn't want you to push away from the Catholic Church, which I didn't do, but I am not considered a practicing Catholic. I don't attend masses, but there are attributes of the church that I love. It's the ritual, the ceremony and traditions. Now, let's talk a little bit about that, not so much from the Catholic perspective, but from the human perspective. It seems as though we, as human beings, regardless of our philosophy, we've kind of lost rituals and traditions and ceremonies. And I'm not talking about celebrating 4th of July with hamburgers and hot dogs and beer and fireworks. I'm talking about sacred ceremonies. Mm-hmm. Can you share with us, and maybe there's some of your music that speaks to that?
Yeah, well, this is really close to my heart because I am a focalizer of sacred ceremonies. I do 3 times a year. I did take a break last year, but since 2012, 13, I've been holding solstice ceremonies and equinoxes, and also I am very fond of the Irish, Celtic, ancient philosophies.
Oh, yes.
Druids. So, yeah. So my ceremonies in nature, I have a garden that's very beautiful. I've been really blessed with it. And it's called the Sacred Garden. I have a plaque there before you walk through this beautiful Tibetan statue of Kuan Yin. And it's a tiered garden, there's a gazebo, and there's flowers everywhere, there's vegetables, there's fruit trees. So I bring a community of friends together, and we do ceremony with water, with incense, with drums, with chanting, singing together, praying together, and honoring the earth. There's a beautiful Chinook prayer. I blend Celtic, Native, and American Native customs, and we do ceremonies with water and flower petals, and we set intentions and wishes, and we send it and put in my pond. We light fires and burn our wishes in there, or the things we want to let go. So we celebrate the beauty of nature and we honor it. And this Chinook prayer is extraordinary. It's about the wonder of this planet and the beauty and power that it holds. And I usually close the ceremony with that. And I also have a ceremony I do more on what I call the Phoenix Temple, which is in this area here where I'm sitting. And it's usually mostly women. I've done co-eds there as well, but it's embodiment practices for women, because you see, religiously, for the last 6,000 to 8,000 years, women have been extricated from power positions within the institutionalized the spirituality. So women have been made really small and not enough, not good enough. And I am an advocate for helping them heal it. And I was trained, very well trained by a beautiful program created by Ariel Spilsbury. And I did this program for 2 consecutive years, not consecutive, but I took a 13 months and then another 13 months. They called it 13-month mystery school.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned how to focalize, a facilitator for people to embodiment practices, in a sense, to embody the divine within, to accept that you are that, to take the blocks and the programs away so that you can be in touch with the possibility that that is true, that it's not just, maybe, and to take you deep enough through these practices until you really feel you've touched that in you, and now you have that confidence, because it was many, many years on a collective feminine level of being put down, and I call it, Ariel calls it reclaiming your authority. And I love that, your divine authority. So it's a reclamation of your divine authority for women, especially, extremely important, because that divine authority was extricated by them systematically, historically, through institutionalized religion.
It's kind of interesting too to think about. I was born and raised into a family of 8. I had 4 sisters and 1 brother, and a mother and father. And I didn't have a problem with that. Yeah, as siblings, yeah, sure, we'd have our little disagreements and our squabbles and so forth. But boy, we had a lot of fun too. We really did. And one of the things that I find so interesting, and personally, from my perspective, my observation, in the New Testament, following Jesus' crucifixion, internment in the tomb, and then resurrection, the first person to see him and know who he was Mary Magdalene. Whereas the group of guys, the apostles, when they came across him, didn't recognize him, and basically they were so grief-stricken. They were, we're looking for the nearest pub so we can toast our master, our teacher, And the one thing I loved about the passage in the New Testament where Mary did see him and recognize him, and she reached out to touch him, and I say this tongue in cheek. He says, no, don't touch. The paint's not dry yet. Just hang on. But it's like they left that in, and I sit here and I'm going, you idiots. If you're trying to eliminate any kind of feminine element from the Christ and these events that took place, you should never have left that in there, because that tells me that, and I look at Mary Magdalene as a great representative of women at large. They know, and men can get in touch with that same knowing, but it takes setting aside one's pride, especially pride. Can you share with us a little bit about that in terms of maybe what you've experienced through these programs that you were talking about, and the aspect of how should I put this, regaining your power, your personal power?
What the process for me was?
Yeah, what was the process for you in finally realizing, hey, I have a voice, I'm going to use it? It's almost along the lines of a couple of years ago, the Me Too movement. Don't count me out. Do not put me aside. I am part of this civilization. You better start listening. And this was not an attempt to usurp or take over. This was an attempt to share in the creation of the civilization, in the sustaining of the civilization. Because quite honestly, without you women, none of us guys would even be here.
Yeah, we cook you guys in our ovens. I cooked 3 of you guys.
That's beautiful.
I have a girl and 3 boys. Yeah. Well, it's a step by step, and you know, I think it takes healing and understanding your trauma, and I think part of that was achieved with a program like USM, which I highly recommend, University of Santa Monica. And they now have a worldwide online program anybody can take from anywhere in the world, and it's transforming. I think that was the first step for me, because I had been molested as a child, and I remember I suffered so much. I had a fall from grace at age 8, and nobody could make me speak, and I stopped going to school. And my mother tried to put me with therapists and all that, and I just couldn't talk. I couldn't. There was so much shame, and because I was so spiritual and I prayed so much, and because there was written all over the walls because of television and what my mother wouldn't let us see, that sexuality is evil. That's the understanding of child.
Yeah.
So when I associated what had happened to me, I thought God would never want me. And instead of feeling victimized by them, I thought I had to, something was wrong with me, because this is how we process trauma. We think there's something wrong when we're very little. We don't blame others. We internalize the guilt and the shame. So I realized that in my 30s, after my divorce, like my late 30s, I was about to start the USM program, and I had filled out this application that was very painful because you got to talk about all the details, and I felt my heart race, and I said I have to write a book about my experiences so that I can overcome it. But I couldn't. I put a sketch. I wrote 8 pages, 12 pages, and then when it got to that episode, I couldn't write. My words wouldn't come. I realized that I would go into a little bit of a panic, and I was a grown woman with children, but I still had the interpretation of a child. In some level, that was buried in my subconscious mind. And with USM's first year, the processes that we do that, because it's a totally experiential thing. We are constantly doing therapy in trios and applying the practices and of spiritual psychology during those processes. And I was able to do a 21-day process with my little girl, and I was able to become that angel to her. I actually appeared to myself as a child, talking to me when I was feeling completely alone and scared, and feeling those feelings, when I had been repeatedly molested. So I think until you can reinterpret, and USM calls it reframing your reality, and you understand it from the correct perspective, and it is released, everything is an experience we learn from. It is the shame, the fear, the guilt that destroys our spirit. So don't ever allow guilt, shame, if I could say, guilt, shame, or fear to ever be a hindrance, because that is the only thing that will hinder your gifts and the expression of your true, authentic, whole self, with all that you came to give and to be and to bring. And those things have to be done. And I feel like healing on the subconscious level the trauma and the fears and the shames, and is absolutely essential, and it's very empowering. I think soon after that, there's other initiations, like going through the 13-room mystery school was, when I went to the Mysterium, but for the first time, having a very tough teacher like Ariel. But you're feeling the calling. You have that conflict. Well, I want to step and embody the my divine self. I want to walk in the world like this. Some of us are, ready, and some of us have to examine certain things, how we operate, and fix it, and go like, I can't embody my divine if I'll continue to gossip, or if I'll continue to be passive aggressive, or, you're still going to be divine, but you're not going to be feeling it so strong, let's say. That's my interpretation. You're going to be in and out of it. I'm kind of divine, but there's stuff that we need to work through the shadow, right? So the more we work with our shadow, and we let go of guilt and shame, and we learn to walk the walk with our heads held high, knowing the integrity we walk with is solid diamond. It's unshakable, uncompromisable, uncorruptible. Then you feel more and more that divine presence within you. It's the character they hold here. How do you walk your life? How do you deal with people? How do you choose to go day by day? What choices do you make every moment? What thought forms are you having? When you're sad or when you're happy, doesn't matter. What is your currency? What is your vibrational frequency, right? It's very fashionable. But we are vibrational frequency beings. I just had another interview with Suzanne from Unique. She's adorable. She's such an angel. And in the end, it was this conversation too. What can you say to people? It's like, remember and believe me, you are pure frequency vibration. Don't let your mind be so distracted. Be the master of your horse. If you have a wild stallion going everywhere, kicking the walls, you're not going to be able to manifest in an orderly manner. Be mindful, like as the Buddhist masters say, be mindful, mind your thoughts. And what are you feeling? How do you carry your heart in relationship to people? Are you able to forgive them and let go? Work on that,
Yeah. We are talking with Kaliyani, Kaliyani.com. We will be linked to that website, and you're listening to Tell Me Your Story.
And the recognition that we're all a part of the human strength. We're all one, as it were.
Oh my God, look at that picture over there. There's the Earth coming up. Wow.
One world, one heart, one great big family. It's time we realize there's more that we can be. Can you hear the lights? Listen to the stars. They say you're not alone. No matter where you are, so will you hold my hand and sing the song with me? The earth keeps calling us, and this
I'm Richard Dugan, your host, and I wish to thank you folks for tuning in to the program. This is a program that is designed with you folks in mind, and we encourage you to participate in the work that we are doing here. We are talking with Kaliyani, who is a beautiful musician, singer, if you will. She is a visionary. What is the legacy that you want to leave, not just your children, but others who may be listening to this or watching this program, this conversation, or just the people who may come to hear you sing, or the lectures? I would assume that you give talks from time to time as well on various subjects, as we've talked about here on the program. So what is the legacy that you want to fundamentally, I guess, have a foundation where you can leave it for people?
I'm a little bit of a jack of all trades, but everything I do, as I say, some people have over the years called me a producer, or they just want to call me a singer. Others call me a healer. Others call me a psychologist. And I say I'm a spiritually inspired visionary, because I don't want to labels limits what you do. And if everything I touch is created from a sense of connection with the divine and is in service to healing people, what I want to leave as a legacy is that every time somebody mentions my name after I'm gone, they will say, well, I'm so grateful for the inspiration she gave me to believe in myself, to believe in my divinity, or to believe that I am worthy, or that the help she gave me in healing this aspect of me, either through film or music, or conversations or ceremonies. Or what I want to leave for people is that they're not alone, and that they're beautiful, they're worthy. It's just sometimes a little crooked road to get there. And I love humanity. I love people, and I'm very compassionate. And all I want to leave behind is that they keep feeling my love.
Well, I will tell you that through this program, which I don't know how long it's going to be up on the internet, but as long as it's there, people will hear your voice and your music. And I hope they are inspired to find and live out their life's purpose for themselves as well as for humanity. And we are most appreciative of you giving us so much time here on the program again, to talk with us about a lot of these different subjects that I think are important. I keep hearing this phrase that, with everything that's gone on in the last few years, we're starting to have the conversations we've been needing to have for a long, long time. And that must be true. I would say that, yeah, we're having those conversations, and let's keep having them. But it's not enough to have the conversation if you're not listening, if you're not really, really listening. And if you are passing judgment, then you're not listening. You're not listening to the other person and where they're coming from. I do find it fascinating, Kaliyani, when I see these television programs and movies of the conflicts that are going on. And I always use the example of the comic strip movie of Batman versus Superman. And I watched that movie, and I think it was like an hour and a half, 2 hours long. Had something to do with one of their mothers. And they started fighting. I don't know if they were doing the dozens on their moms or what, but anyway. And it wasn't until the last 15 minutes of the program when they finally stopped and they started talking to each other and realizing, oh, that's what you meant, or what have you. You didn't say that. You said, oh, and I always joke saying, if they had conversed about this at the beginning of the movie, A, would have been a very short movie. B, no one would have gone to have seen it and would have made no money, and it would have, and so forth. But there wouldn't have been all this fighting.
Yeah.
And I see this time and time again, where at the end of an episode where there's all that conflict, if they had just stopped and listened, but again, that doesn't draw people in.
Mhm. That's true.
You know, it's very, very strange. I want to thank you again for joining us. I do have 3 final questions that I would like to ask you, that I ask all of my guests at the end of the program. But first, I want to thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m., 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., and Wednesdays at 9 a.m. for a special edition of Tell Me Your Story. We stream live at those times at richarddugan.com. We podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, iHeart, Amazon Music, lots of other locations all across the internet. I'm sure you can find us. And we are also, as I mentioned, on YouTube. And I'm sure you're going to really enjoy watching these videos of Kaliyani and her music as you listen to her sing and watch the beautiful, beautiful scenery and so forth of these videos. We hope that you will do just that. We'll hope you, if you don't subscribe, maybe you can at least click the notification so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you can listen to that as well. We also ask that if you can support us financially, we would be gratefully appreciative of that. We have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when you go there and you want to support us financially, they're going to ask what email address that you want to send this to. And you'll put in richard@richarddugan.com. Very, very simple. richard@richarddugan.com. Also, spend some time going within and listening to that still small voice. As often happens, Kaliyani, I get to this point at the end of the program and I go, we never got there. We never talked about intuition. We never talked about the still small voice in that quiet place. Well, doggone it, we'll have to reserve that for our next get together. Number 4, how about that?
Yes, sign me up. You're
okay?
One of my favorite podcasters, I have to say.
Well, thank you very much. And so we also, and again, this is all during the decade of perfect vision, the 2020s. So spend that time. As one of my guests said, Kaliyani, even if you just take 1 minute, okay, 60 seconds, you can spare that. And who knows, maybe it'll grow from there. With all of that being said, we are going to ask those 3 final questions. And I know that you have a given name, but you go by the name you have chosen, Kaliyani, or that you were given. So I will ask it from that perspective. Who is Kaliyani?
Oh my God, that's a loaded question. Kaliyani. Ultimately is love.
What
Kaliyani.
what is your life's purpose?
My life's purpose is to inspire myself and others, transmute, and live in beauty and create beauty. I don't know.
And finally, what was your best day?
Oh my goodness. That's a hard one. I've had so many incredible days.
First thing that comes to mind.
I think it was seeing my daughter in the crib after I gave birth, and just couldn't take my eyes out of her. I was hypnotized with a marvel.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, again, I thank you so much for this time and this opportunity to learn more about you. And yes, we'll have you back again to talk about that inner life that we all need to cultivate. So we'll definitely have you back.
Yes, I'd love that.
And I thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love Talal, Jeanette, I am listening, and Dad, be happy.